Snow falls outside a tiny, freezing apartment. Inside, a single mother sits alone, wrapped in a thin coat, breath visible in the cold air. She holds a worn stack of pages. Next to her, 12 rejection letters, piled like a wall between her and her dreams. 12 publishers rejected her story. Some didn't even bother reading it. But on the 13th attempt, everything changed. She didn't grow up surrounded by wealth or comfort. Her home was modest, and her parents argued often, loud enough for her to hear, even when she tried not to. As a kid, she felt pressure she couldn't explain, so she disappeared into the one place where life always made sense: stories. While other children played outside, she stayed inside with books, fairy tales, fantasy worlds, magical adventures. Not because she had to, but because she needed to. She was introverted, sensitive, and endlessly imaginative. Small moments turned into worlds inside her mind. Every quiet afternoon felt like a chance to escape. And at just 6 years old, she wrote her first story, a short tale about a rabbit, simple, innocent, but full of emotion. Even then, she didn't realize it, but the lonely child with the notebook was already becoming a writer. Because in the end, great storytellers often begin with a little bit of loneliness. She was 25 when everything changed. Her mother, her closest anchor, her quiet source of comfort, passed away after a long, painful illness. The grief hit harder than she ever expected. It wasn't just sadness, it felt like the ground beneath her life had collapsed. Days blurred together. She struggled to work, struggled to focus, struggled to feel anything at all. Depression crept in quietly until it consumed everything. With no stable job and no clear direction, she drifted through life, untethered, exhausted, and deeply lost. But sometimes, the darkest moments plant the seeds of something extraordinary. One cold afternoon, she boarded a train. Just an ordinary trip, nothing special, nothing planned. But the train was delayed for nearly 4 hours. She sat by the window, trapped between grief and uncertainty. And then, unexpectedly, something sparked. An idea. A boy. A world she had never seen before, yet somehow felt deeply familiar. A world that would one day change her life and millions of others. Because in the end, from loss, the seed of a legend begins to grow. She fell into marriage quickly, hoping it would bring stability, comfort, maybe even a fresh start. But instead, the relationship unraveled faster than she could hold it together. Arguments turned into fear. Fear turned into danger, until one night she realized she needed to leave, not just for herself, but for her child. With nothing but a few bags and a baby in her arms, she escaped the life that was breaking her. She fled to Edinburgh, a place where she hoped she could finally breathe again. But a fresh start didn't mean an easy one. She became a single mother, living off government assistance. Some days she didn't know how she would buy food. Some nights she couldn't afford to heat the apartment. Winter felt like an enemy she couldn't fight. But she refused to break. Even at her lowest, she searched for moments of warmth, literal and emotional. And she found it in a small cafe. Pushing her baby's stroller through the cold streets, she would settle at a table near the window. She ordered the cheapest drink she could, just to stay. Then she opened her notebook, pulled out a nearly dried-up pen, and began to write. Not for fame, not for money, but because writing was the only thing that made her feel alive. In that tiny cafe, surrounded by strangers and steam from hot cups, she continued building the world that had sparked on the train. A world of magic, created by someone who almost had none in her own life at the time. Because sometimes the most extraordinary stories are born in the most ordinary places.
She thought the worst was behind her, but life had one more descent waiting. She couldn't find steady work. Every application felt like another reminder of how far she had fallen. Days went by with no answers, no calls, no hope. Money ran out faster than she could replace it. Bills piled up. She was one step away from homelessness, an entire life balanced on the edge of collapse. And then the depression hit harder than ever. Not the quiet sadness of before, but a heavy, crushing darkness that made even getting out of bed feel impossible. She felt worthless, invisible, like a failure in every direction she turned. The world around her kept moving, fast, bright, indifferent, while she felt frozen in a life that had shrunk down to fear, cold, and exhaustion. There were nights she sat alone, convinced she had ruined everything. Nights when she wondered if she would ever be able to climb out of the hole she had fallen into. And in the voiceover of her memory, a sentence echoed, one she would later describe. She once thought she was the biggest failure she had ever known. But even in that darkness, even when everything hurt, even when she believed she had nothing left, she kept writing. A few sentences one day, a paragraph the next. Sometimes only a single line, written with a pen that barely had ink. But she wrote anyway. Because writing was the one thread she could still hold on to, the only thing that kept the darkness from swallowing her completely. She finally finished the first draft of her story. A boy, a school, a world built from years of struggle, imagination, and survival. For the first time in a long time, she felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this story could change her life. She printed the manuscript, packaged it carefully, and mailed it to a publisher. Then she waited. They rejected it, so she sent it to another. Rejected again, and again. Children's books weren't considered profitable. Publishers believed they didn't sell. Some didn't even bother opening the envelope. The manuscript came back untouched, as if it had never existed. She tried 12 times, 12 different publishers, 12 different chances. Every reply felt the same. No, no, no. Most people would have stopped. Most people would have taken the hint, but she wasn't most people. She had lost too much already. She had come too far to stop now. So she kept sending it out, again and again, believing that somewhere out there, someone would finally read her words. Because rejection isn't failure. Rejection is part of the journey. And you don't fail when people say no. You fail only when you stop trying.
Just when it seemed like every door had closed, something unexpected happened. A small publishing house, much smaller than the others, picked up her manuscript. Not because they believed it would be a bestseller, but because someone in that office felt a spark while flipping through the pages. They took it home, they shared it, and a young reader, just 8 years old, couldn't put it down. After finishing the first chapter, the child looked up and said something simple, something honest, something that changed everything. "This is amazing." And that was enough. The publisher decided to take a chance, a tiny chance, They agreed to print just 500 copies, barely enough to fill a single bookstore shelf. No one expected anything to happen, not really. But when those 500 copies hit the world, they disappeared almost instantly. Sold out. Gone. Readers wanted more, a lot more. And just like that, quietly, almost invisibly, the world began to change. The cafe pages she wrote during the coldest days of her life were becoming the warm light that reached millions. What started as a story written in survival was now becoming a story read in wonder. This was the moment the darkness finally cracked open and the miracle slipped through. The 500 copies were only the beginning, because once the world discovered her story, everything exploded. Readers passed the book to their friends. Teachers read it to their students. Bookstores couldn't keep it on the shelves. Soon, it wasn't thousands of copies selling, it was millions, then tens of millions. The books were translated across the world, languages she had never spoken, countries she had never visited. The story reached every continent, every age, every background. And then Hollywood called. The world she wrote in a cold cafe became a global film franchise, bringing her characters to life on screens everywhere. The movies broke records. The books broke even more. 400 million copies, one of the best-selling series in human history. And as the world celebrated the magic, something else happened too. She became one of the wealthiest authors to ever live, the first billionaire writer. But here's the part Americans need to hear, the part almost everyone gets wrong. She didn't get rich from fame. She didn't get rich because studios liked her. She didn't get rich because of awards or interviews. She got rich because she owned her work. Royalties, rights, control. Every book, every film, every piece of the world she created. Her fortune wasn't an accident. It was the result of a simple truth. When you own the thing you create, you own the future it builds. 12 rejections, poverty, depression, a single mother with nothing left and no reason to believe the world would ever notice her. Yet somehow, through cold nights, empty wallets, and endless doubt, she kept writing. She kept believing. She kept pushing words onto paper, even when everything around her told her to stop. And from that stubborn will, from that refusal to quit, came a story that wrapped itself around the entire planet. It inspired children. It comforted adults. It turned strangers into readers, and readers into dreamers. Because the magic was never in the wand. The magic was in her persistence, in her resilience, in her refusal to give up when giving up would have been the easiest thing in the world. And now, after all the darkness, all the setbacks, all the no's, millions know her name. Millions know her world. Millions carry pieces of her imagination with them. So as we close this chapter, a question remains. So what story should we tell next?